Do you keep having a humming noise? Let's talk about what that could be. You're listening to Practical Podcast Tips. My name's Eric Beals, and today I'm going to cover tip number 27, what's causing that humming noise. I'm sure a lot of you have had this at some point in your podcasting career, unless, of course, you're just getting started. And then this might be the first time you've had this issue. But what's plagued everybody at one point or another is some kind of hum in the background. If you're like me and you don't really prefer listening to yourself, oftentimes you might have a humming noise that happens in the background. Sometimes it might be considered a buzzing noise. Oftentimes you don't hear this in the room that you're in. The room that you might be in, you won't hear any kind of electrical buzzing noises or anything like that. But it's usually caused by an electrical source. There's all kinds of reasons that this could happen. Sometimes it's due to bad shielding on cables. Sometimes it could be bad hardware. So if it's a cheap audio interface that you're using, sometimes that can have electrical issues. Other times it can be from feedbacking of multiple electrical sources. There's one time I had this issue, and man, it took me so long to figure out this horrible electrical noise I was getting. I had a camera and I was recording video and audio, but I was recording them on separate devices. But one thing I was doing, I was trying to route my audio interface into my camera, and it was just getting a horrible, horrible electrical noise. And I could not figure out what was causing it, because it didn't seem like it should be causing it. I thought it was something wrong with the camera. And it turned out that what was happening was I had my camera plugged into an outlet, right? And the mistake that I made was I had my audio recorder plugged into a separate electrical outlet, okay? And what was happening was I had my audio recorder recording, but then I also had it plugged into the camera. And I did that so that way I could have a high quality audio recording inside my camera. I don't necessarily have to sync it up later on. And what was happening was, it took me hours to figure this out. But what was essentially happening is that the electricity was like feedbacking through the XLR cable into the camera in a way that it's not supposed to. It's not supposed to do that. Lo and behold, the solution was to simply unplug the audio recorder from the power outlet I had and just run off of AA batteries. It took me so long to figure that out. And it's funny because it's usually a simple solution, but like coming up with the solution to figure out what is causing the problem usually takes far longer than what it actually takes to actually fix the problem. And so what I'm hoping to do in this episode is help you problem solve some solutions and to get it fixed so you stop having this electrical issue. And if you're removing it in post-production, maybe you won't have to keep doing that. So the first thing I want to have you do is, identify the type of buzzing. Try to identify what that is. Listen in the room that you're in. Make sure it's not just like the AC or maybe even computer hum. So when you're recording on a computer, oftentimes it can be pretty processing intensive on your computer. So your computer might be fine before you're recording, and then as soon as you hit that record button, your computer might start kicking up and causing an excessive amount of a humming noise, which may not be from electrical. It might just be fans on the computer. Okay, so try to identify what it is. So just to kind of list off a couple of things. One, it could be computer fans. Two, it could be an AC air conditioning unit in your room. It could also be cable crossing, okay? So if you have XLR cables, can happen sometimes. It's not so much of a problem anymore because most cables are shielded. But if you have an XLR cable that runs alongside of a electrical cable, so like an extension cable or something like that, sometimes you can get a buzzing from that. So one thing to double check is just see if your XLR is crossing any dedicated electrical cables, like extension cables, power strips, things like that. Okay. And then, of course, like I mentioned in the story, make sure that all of your devices that you're using for recording, so your computer, your microphone, your audio interface, everything that you have that's being powered. If it's not being powered by battery and it's plugged in, make sure it's plugged into one outlet. Because didn't think that was the problem, that little bit of advice would have saved me hours worth of effort just to double check that, and that was the problem that I had. So make sure everything you have is plugged into one outlet, just to rule that out. So plug everything into a big power strip or something like that, just to make sure that that's not the problem. Okay, that's pretty much all the main things that could be causing a hum. The last thing could be just poor hardware. If you bought a really cheap audio interface somewhere or even a used one, there could be something internally broken with it. I'd say that's generally unlikely. They're usually built pretty well, but it is a possibility, right? So if you've tried all these things and you're still having a buzzing noise, try switching some of your hardware devices out. Switch your microphone out, switch your interface out with something else, right? And just see if that's the issue. Although I will say I don't think that's a likely scenario, okay? Now, just know that if you're still having problems, computer hum is not uncommon. We remove it all the time. Okay, so I hope that helped you figure out what it might be causing your issue, your humming or buzzing or whatever you might be going on. In the next episode, I'm going to talk about how to actually remove some of this in case you either don't want to re-record or you can't re-record. And I'm going to talk about on how to actually remove this in post-production. And it might be easier than you think it is. All right, I will see you in the next episode. Hey, thanks for listening. If you liked this episode, feel free to leave us a review. I'd love to hear how it helped. Also, if you know somebody else that could benefit from it, go ahead and share it with them. Thanks again, and see you in the next episode.